Something like Composite Brush I also thought would kind of be useful for Premiere. Have you delved into that, or is that in the too hard basket?
I think it would be useful, but for the amount of effort, I think we're just not going to do it. Because with the Creative Cloud, pretty much anyone who has Premiere, they have After Effects too.
Right, except for me, who's a cheapskate and only wants to pay the one product per month.
Well, fair, but I just think that's such a minority in the market.
I'm a minority, good to know. Yeah, I know I'm too cheap. I wouldn't be buying a $200 plugin anyway. So something I'd like to know, because as working in After Effects, I have a lot of complaints about After Effects. What is your biggest dislike about After Effects? And also to balance it out, what is your favorite thing about After Effects?
All right, we're gonna have to go very broad level here, so we don't end up talking all day about it.
Fair enough.
I'll start with my favorite thing is that in After Effects you can just do anything. Like you can do motion graphics, you can do 3D. It's like the biggest Swiss Army knife ever made of any application, and that's why I always keep coming back to it.
Yeah, and I guess why the user base is so, whale.
Yeah, when you look at, we used to do a lot of work for Verizon, for Samsung at RGA, or at least they still do. I'm not there anymore. But just to be able to do a screen replacement and to be able to do all of your comp in one project file and all your UI animation and just everything and have that live in one collected project file, it's so fast and so efficient and so easily shareable. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty amazing, but okay, so should we talk about the things that I don't like about After Effects that could possibly be improved?
Yeah, everyone wants to know that.
All right, so let me think. The biggest thing for me is it's not the friendliest workflow between multiple artists. There are some things that could really come in handy that I think they would take a lot of effort, but maybe wouldn't be that bad. One of which is I think that the render queue just needs to be completely reworked so that way you have hard outputs and it's not like when you queue something it stops rendering. I think that the render queue needs to be completely reworked so that way when you render something it doesn't gray out and disappear. I think you need tags for comp names. Yeah, I think just being able to have outputs that can just write to the same file whenever you hit render and not have to requeue. I think that a dynamic link between After Effects project files would be extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Does After Effects have some sort of team workflow in beta?
I hear about that a lot, but it hasn't really been adopted at any of the studios I've worked at.
Right. I haven't used it because I don't have friends, but I saw that they were trying to implement that, and I was like, oh, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster in regards to bug reports.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hopeful. I feel like eventually it's going to be a pretty good thing, but most people have their workarounds. I mean, one of the common things that I've done at a lot of the places I've worked is you have one project file and you render out to an intermediate folder using something like PNGs or EXRs, and then you just source those EXRs from the other project file. So it's kind of almost like a cached live link.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, but then I hate to say it, but most of the people you work with who use After Effects don't really have that technical mind of like, this is exactly how we have to name and place things. And it becomes a little bit of like a babysitting job to keep that efficiency. And it's kind of, you need it built into the application. You just need it to work despite the fact that the users are almost resisting it.
Yeah, the user needs to be told what to do. What is for their own good.
It's the kind of thing where until you can essentially just link to an After Effects project file from another After Effects project file, there's no way you're going to get users in sync, especially if you're constantly doing version up. I think that the After Effects file should always be the same name. If that's another thing that I could change about After Effects, the After Effects project file will always be the same name, and then when you version up, it saves down like a backup copy the way that Maya does.
Ah, right. Because I'm thinking like that would be really cool if you could reference stuff from another After Effects project file, but in regards to the SDK, there's not even room for a plugin to add that functionality because that functionality just doesn't exist.
Yeah, Yeah, and just I think that saving is kind of problematic too, is because you have to version up, because when you work at these bigger studios, they have servers, and more often than it should happen, sometimes when you save over a file, it can get overwritten or something, or corrupted. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very relevant complaint. I hadn't really thought about that. What is something inside of After Effects that, like for example, a lot of users have been screaming out for, especially on Reddit, everyone's complaining like, I bought this beast new i9 computer and it uses like 10% of my CPU. Have you got some complaints like that?
Okay, so I I wouldn't use the word complaint because I totally understand the complications of development there, but yes, I do agree that After Effects, they're constantly working on more multi-threading and more efficient use of all of your hardware, and it seems like what they should be focusing on. But to be fair, it's kind of what they have been focusing on since After Effects 2014. When they made the leap to 2015, I think we all remember those were kind of tough times because they almost rewrote After Effects from the ground up, separating the render thread from the UI thread and putting
So
those on
many
different
development
processors.
problems from that. I don't think the user would have really noticed between 2014 and 15, but for developers, that meant so many problems and things that weren't even possible anymore.
That almost killed Paint and Stick, honestly.
Oh,
That
really?
was basically, yeah. So we were almost done and ready to launch Paint and Stick by the time 2014 came out, and then 2015 came out, and just nothing worked. Like we had to basically rewrite the program from scratch,
Wow.
and it took like 8 months to do. So that was a disaster.
That's crazy. It's kind of good that you were stubborn enough because I would have just gone, oh, fuck that. I'm not even going to try anymore.
I was working with aescripts on that one, so we were all kind of together in solidarity on like, we're not going to let this fail, like we're going to do it.
Because I know that, you know, the bow plugins, the Mask Avenger, I think the developer of that one, Francois, he had to battle against the new UI change for that to even work. And the solution that he came up with, I'm surprised even works.
I actually haven't used that. I've heard good things about those plugins.
Yeah, those are very sort of, I haven't really used them on projects, but very good at what they do if you ever have the need. Cool, so got 2 questions to go. Who is an industry legend that you have met, and who's an industry person that you would love to meet but haven't got the chance yet?
I actually met Ross Shane the other day, the head of Mocha.
Really? I hadn't actually heard, I didn't know what his name, but when you say head of Mocha, of course, that rings a bell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have his title completely correct, but he's been leading the Mocha team feature-wise, I guess, for like the last 10 years or so. And the dude is awesome. He's a great guy. We had lunch in New York before New York fell apart.
Right, when you could actually have lunch in New York.
Yeah. I'd say that as far as developers go, or as far as planning, making just a good product that people can use that's really useful, Mocha is like my highest bar by far. Like that's my favorite application.
So good that they kind of built it into After Effects almost.
Yeah, Mocha's pretty mind-blowing, so it's pretty cool to meet Ross and just talk about like the journey from when Mocha was not in After Effects. He said it was his idea, and I was like, oh my god, that is just brilliant, because I kind of got into Lockdown because of Mocha.
Well, I was thinking that when I first heard about Lockdown, I thought, wow, Mocha has really missed an opportunity here because they've pretty much owned the market in planar tracking, and yet you've come along and created something that even Mocha can't do. Was he a bit jealous, or was he just happy to see you succeed?
No way, he was just totally the man. Like, I mean, we've gone through some similar experiences, and this is a small industry. You never know, we might work together in a couple years. Like, companies change and restructure and partner in different ways. And Mocha Pro sells off of aescripts.com, so like he and Lloyd, my business partner, are friendly. So I think there's just a lot of mutual respect there. Actually, when I started with Lockdown, I was not trying to make a tracker at all. My plan was Lockdown was going to be like a $25 plugin, and all it was going to do was take tracks out of Mocha and then apply those points to geometry. And we weren't going to write a tracker at all.
Oh, okay. So did you make that and then thought, oh, this could be way better, or how did that happen?
Actually, we took the Mocha export as an afterthought. We were like, oh, we're just going to make the geometry distortion, and then we'll find a way to get those points out of Mocha AE. And then we went and we looked at it, and there was basically just no way to get points out of Mocha AE without the user manually like select the layer and then go back to the plugin and then press import. And it was just such a terrible workflow that it basically killed the product as I had envisioned it.
Ah, right.
So then we were like, okay, well, I guess we just have to build our own point tracker. Like, we just have no choice because the product is dead because we can't get Mocha to actually export these points.
And was that a bit daunting to have to write your own tracker, or was your programmer was like,
absolutely
I can
horrible.
do it?
It was really, really bad. We started writing some of our own algorithms. I mean, we borrowed as much open source as we could. And I'd say that the first tracker that launched with Lockdown was hot garbage, but it worked.
Well, it's honest of you to say so, but that's good.
But we have updated it. We launched a new one that's actually really good because as soon as we launched Lockdown, we hired a lot of additional team members with experience in computer vision. And we very quickly replaced and made the first tracker that was our team's effort. We made that obsolete. And now we have another newer tracker coming out, hopefully in this next month, that blows that away too.
It's always exciting to realize the product that you first launched is like shit compared to what it is now, because that just shows that, you know, the progress that's been made.
Yeah, I could not imagine trying to use a version 1 of any of my products. Like, you know, you get it to minimum viable product, and then...
and then, yeah, because you've spent
it.
months without making any money off of it, and you need it to be released because, yeah, that's just life.
It's like every product launched is still in beta, basically.
Yeah, I feel like that, but I just don't say it out loud. So that was the industry legend that you've met. Who's one that's on your bucket list?
I don't know, because I always get myself in trouble whenever I go to NAB or After Effects Worlds. I really live under a rock. I don't pay attention to the industry. I don't go on Twitter. I don't network.
Oh, why's that?
It's just my personality. It's like I've always been this way, that when I start getting to work on something, it's like nose down in the keyboard and I just focus and I figure it out and I'll Google my problems. But I tackle problems very independently. And I respect all the work that's being done out there, but I always felt like my manner of working is more like I'm looking at the problem, not looking at people who can help me solve the problem. So I've gone to conferences like NAB and I've met these people, and I won't say any names because I don't want to like insult anyone saying they're not important enough for me to know, but I've met people who are like, you know, a household name in the motion graphics industry. I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And then someone's like, dude, do you know who that was? You don't know who that is? I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
No, I don't know who Andrew Kramer is. Who's that?
I started out learning visual effects from Andrew Kramer.
Oh, okay, so you do know.
You know, high school, he was the only one who I knew. And then the rest, I mean, even when I was making Paint and Stick, I didn't know who any of the people on the After Effects team were.
Oh, well, I don't know any people on the After Effects team, and I make plugins, so that just shows how bad I am.
I think EJ Hasenfratz is a guy with a really good sense of humor. I had no idea who he was when I first met him. Great guy. I actually watch his stuff whenever I have to do something in Cinema 4D. But, no, I mean, I met him and like, hey, you know this is the guy from iDesign, right? I'm like, what? I love his stuff, though.
But you're like me. You're a Maya person, so you know he doesn't matter because he's a Cinema 4D person.
I'm very 50-50 at this stage in the game. I do a lot in Cinema 4D, like when I have to.
You're a trader. You've betrayed your roots.
Well, you know, if Autodesk wanted to keep me, maybe they should have treated me a little better.
Yeah, that's how every Autodesk user is feeling right now.
Yeah, you know, some things in Cinema 4D that are real nice.
And I suppose every After Effects user kind of feels like they're, I don't know, they're in Stockholm Syndrome. There's no real alternative. You know, Adobe's got the monopoly and, well, you just got to live with it. There are other alternatives out there, but there's just nothing like After Effects. So at the end of the day, we just keep coming back to our mistress, Adobe After Effects.
Well, I think I'm definitely not as disgruntled with After Effects as other people are because I feel like I have that perspective of how hard it is to develop something and how hard it is to change something. So I feel like the After Effects team is making a really solid, genuine effort to improve things, but they're working off of 20 years of code, and it's just like, what do you do?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And especially especially with something, software that's been built version upon version, legacy code on legacy code, it's like, you want to make a change, but can you? And users from the outside, my CPU's only at 10% CPU usage, but that's, different plugins that have been made by all these different people that have been, acquired by Adobe, and, making them all multi-threaded is not a trivial thing.
And actually, maybe the worst thing is, one of my favorite examples I use is dancing dissolve. Are you familiar with that transfer mode in After Effects?
I'm like, what's the point of it? Because I don't know.
What a piece of steaming hot garbage, right? But here's the thing. They made that transfer mode back in the early days of After Effects, and one of the things that I very much respect about Adobe is their projects are compatible with old projects, like end of story. If it was made in After Effects, it's gonna work moving forward. Like, the only exception to that is I think they had like a weird licensing issue with synthetic aperture, whatever that color correction program was. But other than that, they've been extremely good to their customers about making sure that you can open an old project. So when you're building, essentially it's not just old code, but with the perspective of time, it becomes bad code, but you have to support it moving forward because it's professionalism. And I just respect how well they've actually done that.
But someone who's used Dancing Dissolve in one of their projects, do they deserve to be able to open up that project and it still work?
No, they don't. They absolutely don't. But that being said, there's tons of different plugins on the way from Dancing Dissolve towards an actual respectable plugin used by a sane human being. And those are being supported when realistically, I think a lot of us would say, okay, scrap it, overwrite it, get rid of it. If they made After Effects 2021 in such a way that it wasn't compatible with previous versions, then they could probably do it 10 times as fast, like almost no exaggeration, 10 times as fast. Just strip out all the stuff that you really don't need that hasn't stood the test of time. Stop making things backwards compatible. And I think they could do a better job, but I think it's just an extreme challenge to remain backwards compatible.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought of, and I was wondering why Dancing Dissolve was there the other day. I think there is a video on YouTube that explains what it can do. I can't remember if the result was any good. I think it was like, there's a transition in PowerPoint that you can do that looks similar, and it's just very, very like late 90s. So, but it's cool that like, it's a little bit of history that lives inside of After Effects, like a legacy of how computer graphics, what people thought was cool 20 years ago, and now we just look at it and go, that's a waste of a blend mode.
Colorama. It's
some of those they're
useful.
Very useful, but at their defaults, when you apply them, you're like, wah. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, the YouTuber's mantra. And don't send us a support ticket.